Welcome to another episode of Alex and Mo podcast, and we have the Chief Visionary Officer of BikramYogaWorks, Kendra Blackett-Dibinga. Now, Kendra, I am a Black woman. According to society standard, I'm overweight. I know I'm not the most flexible person, but when I think of yoga, I tend to imagine a white, slender female who is pretty flexible and very focused. And someone like me who can be self conscious, going into a studio knowing that someone is flexible and that's their space, I will feel intimidated and I won't show up. I will just continue to probably be tight and not go. So, why did you think you, as a Black woman, could enter into the space and not only have one studio, but three, and expanding into a space that is not predominantly for Black women?
Hmm. Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it's interesting that you said it's not for Black women because I actually think it's for us. It's for
us. Okay, all right.
It is for us, and one of my biggest things is about making sure that all of us feel like it's our birthright. Wellness is our birthright, and I think for so long we have been excluded from wellness modalities that actually will benefit us, and at the same time, our communities are the ones suffering with all the highest rates of XYZ disease, right? So it's almost like the preventative measures that are out there are either in way far out communities where you actually have to travel like over an hour, and I'll share my experience about that, or you're in areas where you'll basically be the minority and you won't actually necessarily see people that look like you. And so when we decided to open up BikramYogaWorks, we were very specific about where we wanted to open, and we looked for communities that were actually very diverse. And so our first studio in Riverdale Park was 30% white, 30% Black, 30% Hispanic. And I was like, yeah, that's it. And when you look across a BikramYogaWorks studio, you see everybody and everybody, so everybody, every type of shape, from smallest to largest, from oldest to youngest, you'll see a lot of different people coming in. And I think that this is part of the advantage that, me as a Black woman brings to the space in terms of making sure that people feel welcome. I know what it feels like to be the only person in the room. And oftentimes when I even learned about Bikram yoga, the first class I went to, I was like, it was actually in DC. So it wasn't a bad thing because DC is pretty diverse. But when I I grew up in Boston. So I would often go back to the studio in Boston, and I would be the only one in the room, and the only other Black people were my sisters. And so it was the craziest thing, and I always felt othered, you know what I mean? And I used to teach at a studio in Bethesda, same idea. It's like, I was one of very few Black yoga teachers, Bikram especially yoga teachers in the area, and I was like, you know what, this is something that everyone needs. And a friend of mine actually is the one who told me about it in the first place. She said, Kendra, I went to this class and I can't even explain to you what happened, but she normally takes medication for arthritis, and she takes it every single day. She said, I went to one class and for 2 weeks, I didn't have to take any medication. I said, really? I said, if it could do something like that for you, what could it do for me? And I didn't need any medication, but I was like, let me go and see what this is all about. I went to the class, and it was a guy from Eastern European teacher, and very thick accent. I didn't understand anything he was saying, but the feeling that I got at the end of the class was so amazing. I was like, I'm coming back. When can I come back? I literally went for 7 days straight, and I went and canceled my gym membership. And they're like, no, we have yoga here. I said, no, you don't have this yoga. I did everything in my power to take that class. And I worked from home often. I would find a way to, in the middle of the day, go take the class. I mean, I was addicted, you know what I mean? But I realized that, there's so many benefits of it to, not only in terms of physical health, but mental health. You're in a room that you're of 105 degrees, 40% humidity. You're sweating out all your stress, all your frustration, all your anger, all your whatever, all your emotions are like leaving literally your body, and you're leaving it on the mat, and you walk out with such a sense of lightness. You feel light, you feel energized, you feel ready to kind of take on all your challenges. I often get my best ideas while I'm on my mat.
So when did it go from this is something that I'm doing for myself to this is something that I want to provide for others, while I can make it a business, I can make it an entrepreneurial journey, provide for myself, my family? Like, what was the tipping point that made it to go from one to the other?
Yeah, I was working internationally. I traveled a lot back and forth. East and Southern Africa was my stomping ground for a very long time, and I was working on children affected by AIDS issues in East and Southern Africa, and I really loved the work. But it got to the point where I either had to be there or be here, and because I had kids, I had small children, and then my last son, my last baby, my son came, and I just was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with the traveling back and forth. I had to go to a conference in Ethiopia, and here I am carrying a baby, an infant, to this meeting. And I was just, and of course they didn't give me another seat for him. And, my job allowed me to travel with my baby because I was a breastfeeding mom, but they didn't give me extra anything. And so I was there cramped up, on this plane with this baby. And I said, enough. That literally was my final trip. I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. By then I had one studio open. I still taught for like a year while when the first studio opened, and I was teaching. I was also working, but I got to the point where when my son came, because I was pregnant that first year of the studio being open. So when he came, I went on maternity leave. I went back to work, and I was like, enough is enough. But there was a couple other things too that were tipping points for me, because I was working on children affected by AIDS issues in Africa. I started feeling less and less comfortable leaving my children here. So as I was going to work overseas, I love the work, but I was leaving my children. So I felt very conflicted about that. And I just wanted a different pace. I wanted to be home with my son. I was able to stay home for several months with him. And then my boss allowed me to work from home for several months. So life changed for me dramatically when I had my third child. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So I still love traveling. I do retreats overseas. And so I get to satisfy that urge, but I'm home, my kids are able to see me. So that was for me what it was. And then also I realized, there isn't many people looking like me in this space. And I really felt like I had an opportunity. When I was in grad school, I became a personal trainer. So I was already in this kind of fitness space. Of course, again, with the travel international, I couldn't maintain clients. And so when I found this, I was like, oh, okay, even if I have to travel, I can, just sub out my class. But it was just a different model. And then I said, no, when I was done, I said, I think I have an opportunity here. And it grew so quickly. We opened in 2014. 2015, my landlord said, we have this other opportunity for you in DC. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, but how am I going to do it? I don't know. They built me out a whole studio, and I was like, okay. And at that point, I didn't really understand how development really works in terms of working with these big developers. I was like, oh my God, they can actually build you out for your own specifications. And then, so the money that I actually had taken out as a loan for this location, I was able to use that to buy another location. So in 2015, I opened 2 locations. So we had 3. And then in 2018, we opened another 2 locations. So then we went to 5. And then we had this, satellite location, which was within an athletic facility called Athletic Republic. And that was really an interesting concept because it was working with student athletes who were basically being primed to go pro. So we had a studio in their facility. So we grew to 7 locations within 5 years in a very short period of time. And then COVID hit. And then I said, okay, time to reevaluate. Went back down to the 3 locations, and I feel so good about it right now. But we're seeing, there was a time where I realized that our people were the ones who were keeping the studio alive. When people were canceling their memberships left and right, we provided a community where people were like, nah, I need this, and so we started this whole underground thing, this underground, studio movement where people were like, it's COVID, but we're coming to class. And it was so beautiful, like that we all kept it quiet, right? We just like, open the studio for y'all, but you guys got to keep it quiet. But they wanted it, and it's just been a great journey.
It's definitely an outlet. I mean, there are many advocating that gyms should stay open. People should be allowed to exercise and have their fitness going on, because it did contribute to some people's overall mental health. That camaraderie, congregating, talking to other people versus being trapped in your home. And for some people, being trapped with people they're now getting to know, even though they've been married for a while.
Exactly. There's so many issues, you know what I'm saying? And then today, one of my oldest members, and he's just been such a mentor to me, but he sent me an article from the New York Times, and it was talking about an epidemic of loneliness, right? Of, people feeling really alone. And he said, your studio's solve this problem, and I love that, because the idea that people don't have to be isolated, even for the elderly, and which is funny because normally this is an issue of the elderly, right? They feel alone. They're disconnected from their children, from their offspring or whatever. But they're saying no, it's happening in the middle age group, in the 45, people around 45 years old, which is my age, and I am like, that's crazy, right? Because this is like, we're supposed to be in our prime. This is our prime at this point. But I really think that COVID really tried to destroy those relationships that we really need to kind of feel healthy and feel connected. And the mental health aspect that we offer in a studio and community like this is amazing. As I said, people were like, we're coming. They were like 6 a.m. became the busiest time. Everyone was like, we're coming.
Whoa.
6 a.m. The crew was there.
It's funny that you talk about, the underground yoga sessions, because, we look back now at some of the, the rules and things that were put in place early on. A lot of it because people didn't know any better. The people making these types of decisions just didn't know.
Right.
But I still remember, like, here in Tampa, Tom Brady got in trouble for going to a park to throw the football around.
Yes.
Like, and that became a big thing, right? Because he was like, I can't be home. Right. Like, when, and who knows, his home might as well be a park in itself, I'm sure.
Yes.
But, like, he goes out to a local park here in Tampa, and the police are like, hey, you can't be here. And we look back at it now, and we're like, it seems kind of silly.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive when you think about it, right? Yeah.
But yeah, people had to find that thing to give them some sort of normalcy, and I think for most of us, activity and fitness and working the mind, the everything is usually an outlet for most people.
Yeah.
And when that gets taken away, it can have serious impacts, and I think we'll find out more in the years to come how much more of an impact those types of things had on the middle aged, even the younger, group. Like, we have a friend who, like, you think back when you were in high school, like senior year, prom, like you remember those things for the rest of your life.
That's right.
We have a good friend, her daughter, she lost that.
Yeah.
Her senior year, she didn't have any of that. So It's just wild. This time period, we'll get older, and our kids will ask us probably more, and the grandkids be like, what was it? What was it like? But it was great that you had an area for your members, your community to be able to try to regain some of that normalcy, because it was the only piece that you had at that time.
Correct. Yeah. And I really love that, we had to transition obviously online like everyone else did, but we had a lot of people join us online, and we have a studio in Baltimore. The Baltimore location was a little bit, almost an outlier to Bikram Yoga Works because of this location. Riverdale and Ivy City are very close to each other. So you can get there within 10, 12, 15 minutes from each other, but Baltimore's a whole hour, right? And so the Baltimore group, by them being able to come online, all of a sudden felt now included in the community. And that was so important because it helped to really sew the fabric together. You know what I mean? And now they're the most active group on Facebook, in our Facebook group. They're the most active on our social media pages. And so when you look at that, you're like, yeah, there was some definite benefits for us in terms of really solidifying the community within Bikram Yoga Works during the pandemic. But now, it's thriving, and I see people coming and they're like, you coming tomorrow? They're planning their classes together. And this is part of how we are promoting health, right? There's an element of community, but community, what does community do? It provides accountability also. You want to be there and you want to be seen. And so our people are seen, and I'm excited about that because, it's not the skinny, white girl in the studio only. It's everybody. I mean, of course you have the skinny black girl, you have the skinny white girl, you have the fat black girl and the fat white girl, you know what I mean? So it's all of them. Everyone under the sun is there. And what I love about it is that no one feels excluded. And I think, and I think that's specific to me, and to people who look like me. Like there's an element of inclusion that already is part of the ethos, right? So when people come in, they're not going to feel othered because we know what that feels like. So we had to be intentional about not making anyone feel that way, because it's a space for as long as you're here for your health and well-being, we're here for you too.
Well, one thing I have to ask, because you said what kept you going for 7 days straight and quit your gym membership was the feeling, the experience that you got.
Yeah.
Did you try to put that in a jar and be like, this is what my studios are going to look like? I want people to have that feeling and always have that feeling.
So the feeling for me that I got that first class was I sweat so much in that room. I was like, I felt light, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, you work out, of course you raise your endorphins and all of that, I get that. But this one was so different. Like, I literally looked at my mat and it was like soaking with sweat. and I just felt almost like I wrung my body out, and I just felt renewed. It was so amazing. So for me, it was more like, there's something happening. And by the time I had continued going, I felt better. And this was right after my second child, by the way. So I found this after my second child. So, and I didn't really like going to the gym anymore anyway. And so finding my way back to my body after it was a little bit of a traumatic birth for me, the second one. And I needed something different, and it gave me what I needed, and what I noticed. And I tell people, including my instructors all the time, that the person who walks into a Bikram yoga studio is not your average person. And it's not your average person just looking for a new workout. I was looking for something, not necessarily a new workout. I was looking for something, and whatever it was I was looking for, I found it there on that mat. And so people come in, of course they've gone through many doctors and they can't find out what's wrong with them. They got autoimmune diseases, they have all types of stuff, and they're willing to subject themselves to 105 degrees and 40%. That person is special and we need to treat them that way. You know what I mean? And so I tell my teachers that all the time, like the person who comes here is not just your fad workout person. This is not someone they're coming here because they want to take control of their health. And if we can offer them that ability to do so, I think that would be great. I say to them, the person comes in, has a problem here in the heart, or here in the gut, right? I always tell them that, because it's like, once you understand that, it's a delicate situation that you're dealing with. And it's not just, your average Joe who just wants a good workout or a good sweat. No, it's more than that. It's more than that. People are actually trying to take control of their health. And oftentimes when I listen to the stories that I hear, they've gone to doctor, and all they've been given was pills, and no real, idea about what it is that they can do that to get them off this medication eventually and in control of their health. And that is what I think for our people, especially, they need that. They need to be able to, they need to know that they have the ability to turn their health around at any stage. A lot of it is bringing conscious awareness to what we're eating, how we're moving, what kind of toxic energy we're around. There's all of that I feel we tap on in the studio.
That's really good. But I'm going to put you on the spot. Mm-hmm. Alex and I are both physical therapists. Mm-hmm. You, as very health conscious, as you said, it's when a patient comes to us, it's in the mind, it's in the heart, and it's in the gut.
Yeah.
How would you advise us to approach a client? We go into their homes, so that's their space. Mm-hmm. Approach them so that they can have the feeling that we are really in tune with what's going on in the mind, what's going on in the heart, and what's going on in the gut.
Yeah, I think a lot of it to me is not just treating symptoms, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been there. I've gone to every doctor under the sun, right? I've been there because I'm interested in kind of different healing modalities. So I've gone to all types of naturopaths, all types of doctors, and I remember one experience. I even went to this naturopath, and it surprised me because, I'm thinking naturopath, they have a different type of, bedside manner. No, not necessarily. She looked at me, didn't touch me, and I walked out of there spending over $500 in supplements. And I was like, this is not it. And so my thing is like, I think if we can look at them as human beings, first of all, that have really, different things that are going to be needed for them to even implement what you ask them to do. We still have people here who are like, oh yeah, I want to lose weight. Okay, well, how are you with your diet? Are you able to, implement this, that, and that? Oh, and if they don't have the resources, we have to be able to really help them solve the root problem that they're actually addressing, because it's not like, you just need to eat better. You need to eat 5 servings of vegetables a day, or you know what I mean? It's different. It's our communities are facing various issues on access, in knowledge, even how do you actually put your food together. There's all these other things that I think need to be addressed beyond just, okay, we're going to deal with your mobility issue here. It's maybe they don't have certain things that they're going to need to be able to implement what your suggestions. And so I think understanding what the actual issue is, the barriers to their being able to adopt whatever it is you're asking them to do, it's going to be important. I think treating people again, or meeting people where they are, and really understanding. So what we do, we offer free wellness consultations. So when a person comes in, we give them that opportunity to meet with one of us and say, okay, well, what is it you're really here for? Like, what is it? And you often find that there's several issues, but at the base of it, a lot of people are suffering from inflammation, and which is impacting their mobility, and of course, autoimmune issues, which is really gut issue. And so there's all these other things that they're dealing with. And so we can give them some advice and means to be able to address those other issues if we kind of understand that, understand the total profile. I think treating them as whole beings instead of just, symptoms is important.
Most definitely.
You mentioned, and you hit on a good point, meeting these individuals where they are, and there being multiple different factors that play into their ability to meet their needs and do like stuff. Something that commonly comes up is a financial aspect, right? A lot of minorities, average, tend to be on the lower socioeconomic point. So what do studios, if anything, what do they do to help facilitate that access, right? So because we think yoga, we think expensive memberships, things of that nature, because we run into the same problem in physical therapy. You know, going to outpatient physical therapy gets costly.
Yes.
So it automatically puts those in a lower bracket, that much difficult for them to kind of get to that level playing field, so to speak. So
You know what I've noticed in business though, and I think this is in general, when an individual really wants to change something in their life, there's something that connects with them, internally, and they attract externally in order to get there. So even though we have, financial barriers, there's always going to be some issue, some barrier to getting what we need. But the moment you make that decision that this is something that you need, you're going to make it happen. I mean, I think of my own life. Okay, did I really need that dress, or did I really need to go on that vacation, or but I made it happen because I really wanted it, And so I think when I look at people, I'm like, okay, let me tell you what I had to do. I wasn't making a whole bunch of money when I found out about Bikram yoga. I was supporting my family, right? And I went and I said, well, how much is a membership? They were like, blah, 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 it's this much. And I said, okay, well, that means I have to cancel my gym membership. I have to do this, and I did all of those things because I wanted that, you know what I mean? And so I think that there is sometimes this assumption that financial reasons are, enough of a barrier to make people not do something. And I think it's partly in our community, especially, that we need to be able to change that perspective. On all of these interviews that I do, I always talk about this one book that I read that's changed my whole life. And it's called The Science of Getting Rich. And in that book, he talks a lot about how a lot of it is the mindset. If poor people, financially poor people think that they have no power, but if they were actually to band together, they actually have the power. They're actually the most powerful. And if they understood that, they can actually make change. And so I think for us, when we think of, if we can get the person to understand the benefit that it would bring to them to be able to live healthier, move better, not have pain when they get up, all these things, then something has to click in them and they're going to make it happen. I do believe that. Of course, there's always barriers. So for us, what we do have like a scale of pricing. So, and recently we just introduced a limited membership. So we have unlimited, which of course is the highest amount, but I was like, okay, fine. Can you commit to one time a week? One time a week, because what I'm trying to do is get people to have the habit of moving, the habit of showing up, the habit of committing to something that's actually going to impact their health for the better. Okay, can you commit to 2 times a week? We have a 10-class unlimited package. Can you commit to 3? Now, if you could commit to 3, you better get on the unlimited package because that's the best deal. And so I have to get them there. You know what I mean? And so I create an opportunity. But we also have what we call a work study program. So if they really can, like students, and there are people who just really can't afford it. I get it. But they're willing to come onto the work study. They're willing to volunteer to do it. And they get free and unlimited classes at the studio in exchange for 2 shifts a week, 2 volunteer shifts a week. So we try to make it affordable so that everybody can come in. And then when those volunteers come in, they realize they're giving something and they're getting something in return. For the people, we find the people who are most successful in the volunteer program are actually people who understand the benefit of this yoga, right? They are actually in class almost every day. And then they're like, yeah, I could do my 2 shifts a week for that because I'm here already, And when I see that someone isn't taking class, I already know that they're going to jump off of work study. I already know that because they don't see the benefit. And if they don't see that as an exchange, it doesn't work. And so I find that for us, that has been a great way for us to bring people on board. And during the pandemic, we started an ambassador program. We called it the I Come to Breathe program. And we got people all across the country, across the world, who wanted to help spread wellness in their communities, inviting their friends and families into our online platform, because we do stream most of our classes virtually as well. And so we're like, okay, and that's a cheaper rate too. If you're, home and you can't come to the studio for whatever reason, you can stream virtually, and we have a cheap membership and cheap drop-in rate for that as well. And I find that people make it happen when they want it. They do make it happen.
You mentioned that when you first started, like Riverdale was 30% Black, 30% Hispanic, 30% Caucasian.
Yeah.
Now, what percentage of the class makeup is male, female?
Okay, good question. It's mostly female still. But in some of our locations, we actually have more men coming in than women. Like the class right now that's being taught is being taught by a man, a Black man, and we have about 50% men in that room right now. So Ivy City, our DC location, has probably the most men coming in. Let me backtrack. Most Black men coming in.
Okay.
In Riverdale Park, we have a lot more white men going in there, and that's very much. I wouldn't say it's even. I would still say it's predominantly female. I would say 70%, 30% over there. And then we have the Baltimore location, which looks more like 80-20 in terms of male female. On 20, of course, the lower end being men.
So the reason I asked, we've been talking about how the pandemic affected people, increasing social isolation.
Yeah.
I just read an article where it said that a lot of men, especially between the ages of 30 and 55, are complaining now that they don't have any social connection. They don't really have any friends that they can talk with or vent per se, even if they're married or stuff, because there's certain things they don't feel like they could be vulnerable enough to tell their partners and their spouses. So they interviewed some men anonymously, and I was surprised at the percentage of them that complained that they felt depressed or isolated. So there's a stigma in the Black community that seeking mental health counseling is I don't know if I should say the word, but it's frowned upon.
Yes.
Also, that's typical in the Black community is that we should use church as an outlet to help with emotional and mental issues. Even the Bible app this morning, it was telling us to capture your thoughts. And capturing your thoughts, just don't, even if you think something negative or bad, just capture it and not externalize it.
Yeah.
But for some people, it's hard to do. It's a lot that in itself is stressful. But something like yoga can offer a platform or an escape to do that, especially as you said, sweating it out makes you feel lighter. It makes you feel relieved, and you have that community where you can talk with people and you bond. Yes. So how would you, as the owner of a studio, encourage Black men, Hispanic men, who are known to be macho men, to try something that's typically
for women,
for white women?
That's so funny. Bikram yoga is actually a very athletic yoga, which is why a lot of men end up doing it. And it's actually hard as heck. This Bikram yoga is like when they come
regular yoga is hard.
Yes.
So I can only imagine.
And then it's so funny because the men become real competitive. Like their wives bring their husbands in, and they're like, they die. Right? They that first class. And then there's something triggers in them, that competitive spirit triggers, and then they're like, I'm coming back and I'm gonna rock it, So I love seeing that because we do have a lot of men who are coming in. And in my classes, I get quite a few men, and it's lovely because they're talking to other men. Right. And we have to utilize, in a sense, these ambassadors to kind of bring other people in to let them know, nah, man, this joint is hard. Like it's even better than a gym workout. Like you're going to have all these other benefits. And I see people coming in, they're losing weight, they're getting fit, they're looking good. One of the things about Bikram yoga, we are in front of a mirror the whole time of that 90-minute class. So you are looking at yourself in the mirror and you are confronting yourself in your worst, right? Like all, looking all sweaty, looking all crazy, your hair's all messed up or whatever. Your clothes are clinging to you, and at the end of it though, you're like, you actually have to have a little bit more compassion for yourself. You know what I mean? Like to be able to say, it's okay. It's humbling. It's humbling. And I see a lot of men really transforming from that macho man to kind of like, I'm good. I feel really good. And I hear the testimonies all the time, and I love it because, it's not just for women; it's for everyone who really wants to take control of their health. But for men who are like, "Oh, yoga's for women," no. If you can see, if you really try, that you will be like, "Oh, wow, that joint is no joke. It is no joke." And so, if you're looking for a challenge to your workout, cardiovascularly, physically, mentally, it's all challenging, and you're going to find so many benefits from it.
Yeah, my colleague has been challenging me to take a class.
Yes,
but I will. So
yes.
I'm gonna go to the one closest to me, which will be the one in Riverdale. So
Okay.
when I do, I'll definitely let you know.
Good.
I hope no one talks about if I have any flatulence issues if I'm in the class.
No. Not at all. We have a class. We have a class called Flexed. And I always tell people try that one first because it's not as high of the heat as our Bikram yoga class, but you get such a good stretch and an awareness of your body and kind of where you need to go. And as physical therapists, I encourage you guys to try that class because some of these moves, of course, we do it in a heated room, which allows for more mobility and flexibility. But a lot of these moves people could just do at home, and you can give them certain sequences, especially if they're dealing with lower back, hip, knee issues, shoulder, neck issues. So we go through. I'm a fascial stretch therapist, by the way. So I know you guys are physical therapists, but I'm a fascial stretch therapist, and so the class is created based on what we do in our fascial stretch therapy sessions one-on-one.
Are there any contraindications for someone not doing the Bikram yoga?
No, but of course, if there are people who have heat, who are heat averse, right? So if there's issues with heat, I would say, maybe like I know some people who have like lupus and other autoimmune diseases that are triggered by the heat. So I would say, maybe you go to a lower heat class, and we do have those. We have yin yoga, we have the flex class, we have these other classes that are lower heat. But really, the Bikram yoga is so good. Like for people who even have asthma, you're learning how to breathe deeper, and your lung capacity increases. And there's so much that happens in that, the oxygenation of your cells, and all this helps movement better. What I notice with people too, the more they come into the hot room and the more they sweat, the more they drinking water. A lot of our folks don't drink water, right? Like you're always drinking juice or something, right? Like, and so, oh, we want the lemonade, or the Kool-Aid or whatever, there you go. Right. But the more they do the yoga, the more they're drinking water, and water is such a good thing, right? It's cleansing. It really keeps you, it helps the cells and everything like that. So I think that there's so many other benefits that people could get to. So no, not really so many contraindications, but I do know some people who are heat averse, and heat can trigger some of their symptoms.
Okay.
Now, did you go through any kind of formal training, to get to where you are? And then when you bring on, new teachers and instructors, is there like a formal training to go through, or what does that process look like?
Yeah, so I went to the Bikram yoga teacher training 2010, and that was 9 weeks in California with Bikram himself. And so I definitely got that training. Of course, I've been teaching for several years now. And then I was a NASM trained personal trainer. So NASM, I did that. And so, but my background actually is in public health and public policy. That's really where I got my degrees, and that's where my professional career really started. But I was so interested in this other stuff because, again, from the public health aspect, to me, we need to be able to give people resources for them to be healthy. I mean, because of the roadblocks I hit within the medical system, I didn't want to just be given pills and supplements and this and that. No, I really wanted to be in control of my health. And I knew a lot of it started with diet, but it also is movement, is exercise. And I didn't want to just be, stuck having to, get a cortisone shot on my knee or, all the time or whatever the case may be. So I do think that, there's that aspect to it. But now when teachers come to me, they usually have their certifications and we test them out first. And then, of course, we have our own teacher training program within the studio. So Flex is my creation. And then we have Dripped, which is our resistance-based training. So we use resistance bands and weights in that class. And that's supplemental to the Bikram and the other yoga classes that we have. So we do training in those as well.
So Flex, then regular Bikram, then Dripped?
Dripped, yep. Mm-hmm.
So I have to work my way up from Flex to...
You can take Dripped. Dripped is just a fun workout.
No, okay.
But it is intense. That's the way you see the videos. Most of the videos that I post are from Dripped. So that's to give you an idea of what happens in Dripped.
When Mo goes to do the class, we're going to have to do a live feed for
all of us. That would be awesome. Yep. That would be really, really good.
Baby steps, okay?
Start with Flex. Flex, I love Flex. I mean, it's the class for me because when pandemic hit, I all of a sudden was teaching 5-6 classes a day and my body was breaking down. Okay. That class was my recovery class. I was able to stretch my spine, work those hips, really open it up and keep it open. I felt so amazing. I'm missing the class tonight for this podcast, and that's okay because I take it at least two to 3 times a week.
Okay.
That's okay. Today I taught 3 classes, so I'm good. I've been
okay.
But I normally take the 7:30 p.m. class, and but it just kind of sets me, and I fall asleep, and I feel so good the next day. But that's why I say try that because that one.
So it helps with the sleep.
It helps, yeah, because it really relaxes you because you're stretched out, like you're really like stretched out. And what I realized for me is that a lot of people are not really aware of their bodies. And so, as physical therapists, movement it requires a lot, right? There's so much going on in order to move. And especially people who are unable to move in the normal patterns, the other things can start to compensate, which further stop them from moving, right? You know how that goes. And so a lot of people start to lose that connection with their body and how they're actually supposed to move. And so what I love about Flex is that it allows people to reconnect with their body. It's like you can feel your spine, like you can feel the lengthening, the opening of your spine. You can see really clearly how your hips open through your 90-90 sequence. And I love it because, people are getting hip replacements, knee replacements, all types of replacements. And you're like, no, like, let's try to get that together, So I love what we offer here because I think, with yoga especially, you're raising awareness about, your body, your mind, your state of being. And so what we do here is all of that.
Yeah, a lot of us only pay attention to our body when it's in chronic pain.
Yes.
We think just taking the Advil or the Aleve or Tylenol, when you do get the first sign, it's gonna be the remedy for it. But it's actually a warning sign that, hey, something is not quite right. So I guess teaching the tips to prevent will prevent further course later on. So that's definitely good. Alex, I told you she was a great negotiator.
So, you mentioned that you taught 3 classes today. Like, I'm interested. Have you ever, for fun, informational purposes, or whether you actually use this info, like, have you ever weighed yourself, like, before and after with the amount of sweating and stuff that, like?
No. I stay away from scales. I actually stay away from scales because it doesn't tell me what
obviously there's more to it, Wayne, and I don't mean like from just like a pure like tracking but I'm just curious to the amount of perspiration that you probably go through.
How long are the sessions?
Between 60 and 90 minutes. So today I taught 45. One was 45.
Look at Alex's face.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're in 105 degree temperature for 2+ hours.
We're gonna lose water weight for sure.
No, exactly.
Yeah. And people do weigh themselves, and you can fluctuate 5 to 7 pounds in a day. Like yes, for real. Yeah.
That's what I imagined,
Okay.
right? Like,
So
to
the
me,
day before graduation, I'm gonna take the class.
Yes, exactly. But then you just can't eat. You can't replace all those calories though. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just got to be, again, it is water weight. Obviously, you're not, burning fat or anything in that amount of time that quickly.
Right.
But it's still fascinating to me, I think, to the amount of sweat, right? So you're just releasing all this fluid, that, again, to your point earlier about drinking plenty of water, like, you've got to replenish that so that your body can function adequately.
Correct.
As
it's not
part
just water. Yeah, it's not just water. But, like, people, I saw you were drinking essential water, so it's electrolytes. It's the electrolytes that they're losing in through the sweat, and so that you do have to keep that balance. We often do challenges, so 30 days, the 60 days, 90 days, where someone is taking a class every day for those 30, 60, or 90 days, and people lose weight. So if you're trying to lose weight, a lot of it is like really right sizing in that room, and so people will realize, oh, if I do the Bikram yoga, let's say, I can't go and eat oily food, pizza, and all this other stuff, because my stomach will be so upset. And then people start, after they do it for a few weeks, they're like, I try to eat some chicken and I can't even digest it. Like, they literally vomit it up. So a lot of times it's like, what we're realizing, that people are unconsciously consuming food, and the moment they start to realize, well, maybe when they tune in, they're like, oh, maybe this doesn't make my stomach feel good. I feel bloated when I eat that. Again, to me, it's about bringing conscientiousness to everything that we do, and then you realize, oh, I can't put that in my mouth because XYZ, it makes me feel this way. Or when I eat that, oh, my knee swells. Or when I eat that, oh, I notice inflammation coming out. And so this is what we're trying to get people to understand. The more you can tune in to what your body's telling you, you can actually be on the path to health, because you won't be consuming things that actually are negatively impacting you. A lot of people, I just see them just eat, like the other day. So I'll tell you, it's 105 degrees, so people are sweating. Okay, don't and it stinks. And so,
well, that's what I was saying. I don't want anybody to go and say, "Oh my God."
No, the woman comes into class and she was like, she kept leaving, and at one point I said, "No, stay, just lay down." And she said, "It stinks in here." And I laughed so hard. I said, well, yes, because last night people went drinking and they were eating fried food. So she was like, I said, yeah, so now it's all coming up through their pores. Does that make sense to you? She's like, oh my God. But you like, it's the funniest thing. Like, let's say New Year's Eve, and then people come in for New Year's Day class. The alcohol, it permeates the room, because literally you're detoxing in the room, and that's what's happening there. This is why when people try to eat things that really shouldn't be in their body in the first place, the body physically rejects it, and then all of a sudden they're losing weight. They, fitting in their clothes that they haven't fit in a long time. They're eating healthier because they know they can't eat certain things if they want to really take the class. And all of a sudden they're healthier. I mean, I love seeing that transformation of our members.
I could definitely see the joy in your face, just the excitement, just talking about it and the benefits of it. So not only does it improve your sleeping pattern and improves flexibility and movement, you said that it also helps with helping you to balance the mind and becoming more self-aware. Sure. So it definitely works. Alex, I'm going to try it. And for those who need to lose 5 pounds this weekend, go to BikramYogaWorks Friday.
Yes.
Fit into that jeans.
Yes. Exactly.
So, I'm going to ask you now, because, Mo and I, we're always bouncing ideas, and, I always love to learn how to pick their brains and stuff like that. And sometimes even try to implement some of the things that they may be doing or have done to kind of be successful. From a pure business standpoint, what advice, recommendations would you have somebody, like if I said to you, hey, maybe I want to open a Bikram yoga studio. What advice would you have to an individual like that? Kind of mistakes that you've made or things that you could have done differently?
Mm-hmm. The first thing I would say before anyone opens any business, regardless of what it is I always would ask them if it's their passion. I do believe that, passion and purpose make profit, right? So if you're really passionate
She
about
said that in class. She said that in class.
you know what I mean? If you're really passionate about it, you're gonna be successful about it because business is hard, right? And when COVID hit, like we were all like, oh my gosh. And someone asked me the other day, and I said, you know what? I just didn't. I didn't stop moving. I kept moving because I had no other choice. I didn't even know what else to do but to keep going. And when the going gets tough, are you just gonna, throw up your hands and a lot of teachers went put their blanket over their head. That's not entrepreneurship, So if you have to be committed all the way, and so that's for any business that you want to start. The other thing that I think I learned the most was, you starting a business, you are the face of that business and you need to be there. You need to actually lead the business and people need to see that. I took for granted my Baltimore location because I had a main teacher there, right? And I was focusing on the other two. But that moment that teacher left, I was scrambling, right? Because she was able to move maybe a third of my clientele with her. And so it was like, whoa, no, you are your brand. You have to be the face of your business at all times. And I think the other thing that I think I've learned too is that, I am a very family oriented type of person. And so the people who I want around me have to have that same ethos. So I want people around me who understand the mission, what I'm trying to do, how I interact with my clients, and I need them to do the same. And at the moment you have someone who is maybe not aligned with that, they should not be there. And this is a lesson that I've had to learn, and it's a mistake I've made many times because I rationalized keeping somebody on my team that really wasn't about BikramYogaWorks. They were about themselves. And if I really was honest with myself, I would have said, no, she doesn't fit the ethos of this business. And when you have somebody like that, you cannot keep them on. I was reading a thing last week, and it was talking about one bad apple could actually spoil the bunch, and it's in all things, right? And so I was like, okay, this is, Kendra, the lesson that you continue to learn because you are so nice. You want to make people feel this and that. No, not for business. For business, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to be very clear about who you have on your team and what you're willing to accept and not accept. And the moment that someone goes awry, you have to address. And if they can't align, get in alignment, they cannot stay. And that's something I've learned too. Other than that, I do feel like, paying attention to the business is important as well. And so this is something that I have had to keep coming back to. I teach still quite a lot. A lot of it is because, I'm still trying to grow some of my newer offerings, and I want to make sure the quality remains. And so as I do that, I start like handpicking teachers to join my teacher training. It's meant that sometimes I'm so physically tired that I don't have the mental wherewithal to do paperwork. At the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? I just want to go home and sleep. Which is what I'm going to do tonight. And so tomorrow is like, I got to get up and actually have to do the business. And so this is something that I struggle with a lot in terms of, making sure that those pieces are not left unattended to, because at the end of the day, you still have to know what your bottom line is. You need to know where your resources are going. You need to know where you're spending that money. And it needs to be, it needs to make sense for the business in order for you to grow and remain profitable.
So
great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another thing, like I'm a big believer in teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like my wife is my rock. She allows me to do the things that I do, personally, professionally, with this podcast and all that stuff. So I owe a lot to her and her support and her wanting to work together for, my purpose, my dreams that will ultimately bring us back. Tell me about because you obviously you mentioned you have kids.
Yeah.
How does your spouse fit into this? You know, how do they partake, or, you know, what is their role, and how has that role allowed you to do what you're doing with the business?
So my husband has always been a major support, and it's funny because I spend so much time at the studio and he spends a lot of time at home. So it's, you know, roles have shifted, and it's not always easy because, you know, he wants to be out there too, right? Like, you know, but there's certain sacrifices that we both had to make in order to make it work. And so he's allowed me to really grow the business while, you know, he handles most of the stuff at home. I still do some things like, you know, making sure the kids are eating properly, and I cook and things like that. But for the most part, I'm here, I'm running the business, and I have, you know, other supports too, which, you know, for me, I have an assistant who cooks for me. You know, and she like makes sure that I am taken care of during the day. Like, she made me some soup earlier that's sitting there for me to eat tonight. So it's like when I'm here late, I have people who are handling my personal needs as well, because it's not easy at all. So, you know, we split, like with the kids, I drop off 3 days a week, he drops off the other 2, and then we vice versa, and the pickup and stuff like that. And so it works. But on the weekends, he's definitely the one mostly with them. And so it can be a little bit challenging if you don't find the balance. But he has been such a great support to the business. He teaches every now and then too. So if I need, you know, a teacher, he'll come in and sub it out. And yeah, so we have a really strong community. What I love even about the teachers here too, they really support each other. And so if I need to give up a class, and, you know, because of, you know, my kids, like I have a daughter who's in 11th grade, one in 9th grade, and my son is in 2nd grade. So, you know, of course, end of the year, a lot is going on with end of school year type of stuff. And it's been interesting because, you know, the teachers are like rallying around. They're like, oh yeah, we got it, we'll cover it, you know. And so it's having that, the community is not just in our clientele, it's in the staff. There's a strong community here of support, where people are willing to take other people's classes. And I love that, because otherwise, you know, I'm only one person. I can't teach everything.
Absolutely.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Well, this has definitely been great. Thank you so much for sharing the value of Bikram Yoga and also some great business tips. I know some of it I'm going through right now, so I definitely need to also touch base with you. Yep. And congratulations again on completing the Goldman Sachs 10K small business.
Thank you.
Alex, she and I were in the same cohort together, so we will be graduating next week.
Yep.
Awesome. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you. But I wish you the best, you and your team, that you continue to thrive. I will definitely sign up for the Flex class.
Good.
She does online programs, so.
Yeah, maybe you at same class. You come to Saturday at 11:30. It's so both of you can take it at the same time.
Yeah. We'll have to figure that out one time. But yes, thank you very much. We really do appreciate your time and obviously the sharing of the knowledge that you've acquired and are giving out to your community. So thank you very much. We greatly appreciate that. We wish you the best and congratulations again. And to our viewers and thank you as always. Thank you for following us and coming on this journey with Mo and myself. And, you know, we'll keep churning it out and keep putting out content and, you know, just see where this ride takes us on. So again, everybody,
purpose, passion, purpose plus passion equals
profit.
All right, let's go.
Awesome.
Thank you guys
so much for the opportunity.
No problem.
Great work. I love.
Get some sleep tonight.
Yes, I will. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody have a good night. Thank you very much.
Take care.